You're never gonna make it, you're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro. Don't waste your time no more. Who the f*** are you to tell me what to do? I don't give a damn if you say you disapprove. I'm gonna make my move, I'm gonna make it soon. And I'll do it cause it's what I wanna f***ing do. Cause all these opinions and all these positions, they come in millions, they blocking your vision.
Good day, Brolies. What's up? In today's video, we're checking out a gaming laptop that could possibly replace a desktop PC. With its combination of good build quality, a substantial amount of input and output ports, outstanding performance, overwhelming number of nifty features, and an overall aesthetically pleasing design while maintaining a relatively portable form factor, the MSI Raider GE76 2022 edition looks formidable as ever. It offers an uncompromised, fully unlocked performance for both its 12th Gen Intel Core i9 processor and its NVIDIA Geforce RTX 3080 Ti graphics card. I love everything about this and I'm eager to share my thoughts with you. So with that being said, let's get into it. Alright, as usual, let's do a quick unboxing experience since what we have here is the special deluxe edition with this vibrant purple packaging, and not only that, the deluxe edition comes with an MSI M99 gaming mouse and an MSI H991 gaming headset. So you're pretty much good to go out of the box here. As you can tell, the packaging for the deluxe edition is quite premium, and removing the initial sleeving reveals the standard packaging for an MSI gaming laptop. Inside the box, we have another accessory box right here. The MSI Raider GE76 itself, nicely protected by some styrofoam protection and plastic, and then underneath that we have some paperwork. Inside the small accessory box, we have the power cord and the massive 330 watts power brick to support the fully unlocked processor and graphics card on this latest gaming laptop from MSI. Now, aside from the styrofoam and plastic, the MSI Raider GE76 is also protected by a non-woven fabric. Now, at first look and touch, it looks and feels almost exactly the same as the previous MSI GE76 Raider that I reviewed before, which is made out of a combination of aluminum and hard plastic materials with an accent RGB light bar on the front side. Looking from above, we have a pleasantly looking, cool-toned aluminum cover with the subtle chrome MSI logo right here and some interesting polygonal design around the hinge. Looking on its front side, we have the said RGB light bar that spans across the entire width of the laptop and has the soft and diffused illumination. On the left side, we have an exhaust ventilation, a small LED indicator, a Type-A USB 3.2 Gen 2 port, a Type-C USB 3.2 Gen 2 port that also doubles as a DisplayPort 1.4 port, a 3.5mm audio combo jack, and a side-firing speaker. On the other side, we have another exhaust ventilation, two Type-A USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports for peripherals, an SD card reader, and another side-firing speaker for a total of 4, including 2 on each side of the keyboard. And what I like about this is that most of the longer and thicker cables are located at the back, like the mini display port, Thunderbolt 4, the Ethernet port, HDMI, and the power port. It makes cable management and ease of use a lot better. I also appreciate that it has an SD card reader and pretty much all the necessary IOs for productivity and content creation. Now, in terms of the cooling solution, we have a total of 4 exhaust ventilation around the corners of the laptop and a bunch of intake ventilation at the bottom. Speaking of the bottom, we have the iconic Dragon Armor carving design with the said intake ventilation, and you can see a little bit of the fan blades and heat pipes inside here for the cooler boost technology that allows the MSI Raider GE76 to perform at its highest peak during load. We also have a good amount of rubber feet to keep this thing stay in place and a nifty reset pinhole right here. Going back on top, the lid can be opened easily using one hand thanks to the sheer weight of the bottom half of the laptop. Upon opening the lid, you'll see the full-size keyboard with dedicated arrow keys, numpad, and function rows, albeit smaller than the other keys. The control key is also wider than usual, targeted towards gaming, as well as the overall fonts and look of the keyboard. It features per-key RGB lighting and is highly customizable via the SteelSeries GG application. The keys themselves have a decent amount of tactile and bouncy feedback, and it also has a substantial amount of travel for the actuation and doesn't feel that mushy or particularly loud either. I also like the design of the keycap and its illumination here compared to their older pudding-like keycaps, albeit quite dim for my preference as you can see here in a fairly dim environment. I also would have preferred if we have a dedicated power button with an integrated fingerprint reader here. Now, on the sides of the keyboard, we have a couple of upward firing speakers that, when partnered with the side firing speakers, make up for a full listening experience for both media consumption and gaming. Here's a quick sound test for you guys.
You're never gonna make it, you're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different, man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro, don't waste your time no more. Who the f*** are you to tell me what to do? I don't give a damn if you say you disapprove. I'm gonna make my move, I'm gonna make it soon.
Now, the trackpad is kinda small for my liking, but at least it has a solidly built surface with a good amount of tactile feedback and is quite accurate and reliable. Now, moving towards the display, what we have here for this particular variant, which is the MSI Raider GE76 12UHS to be exact, is a 7.3-inch UHD 120Hz IPS level panel. That's portable 4K gaming for you guys. Now, depending on your region, this also should be available in Quad HD 240Hz and Full HD 360Hz variants. As you can tell, the bezels are quite thin, especially on the sides with a thick bottom bezel. Up top, we have a fairly thin bezel while also accommodating the microphone array and the Full HD webcam. Here's a quick look at the webcam's quality. Hi guys, so this is a microphone and webcam test for the MSI Raider GE76 gaming laptop. Now, as per testing, the display has 98% sRGB coverage, 67% NTSC, 73% Adobe RGB, and 72% P3 color gamut. In my opinion, that is good enough for most productivity applications, especially for web and social media postings. The display has good colors, contrast, and sharpness, and can get substantially bright with decent viewing angles. Unless you force yourself to look at a very extreme angle like this, for the most part, the 4K display panel is pretty good. Although honestly, if I have to pick again, I would rather go for the Quad HD 240Hz variant for a good balance between resolution and refresh rate for both productivity and gaming. With that said, thanks to the powerful hardware inside and the crispy 4K resolution display, I've actually never seen Cyberpunk 2077 this good, so I really had a great time gaming on this laptop with a very outstanding visual experience. Now, as we move towards the hardware under the hood, let me break down the key specifications of the top-of-the-line 2022 variant of the MSI Raider GE76 gaming laptop. What we have here for the 12UHS variant is a 12th Gen Intel Core i9 12900HK processor with an NVIDIA Geforce RTX 3080 Ti graphics card, 32GB of DDR5 4800 memory, 2TB of super-fast Samsung Gen 4 NVMe SSD, 7.3-inch 4K 120Hz IPS level panel, Wi-Fi 6E, a bunch of necessary input and output ports, 4-cell 99.9Wh battery with a 280 or 240 watts AC adapter, though what I have here is actually a 330 watts power brick. So as you can tell, the MSI Raider GE76 2022 variant is definitely one of the top gaming laptops this time of the year. And with a good amount of input and output ports, partnered with a fully unlocked processor and graphics card in terms of power draw, this is definitely an uncompromised piece of technology. Now, what I like about the MSI Raider GE76 software-wise is the revamped MSI Center, which is a sort of all-in-one application to fully take advantage of this laptop's performance. Not a lot of people that will get this are very technical, so I appreciate the fact that it has a smart auto feature that will automatically adjust the performance modes depending on the demand of the application. And unlike previous versions of the silent mode, which just keeps the fan at its slowest speed compromising performance, the new ambient silent AI mode matches the level of the ambient noise, allowing the laptop to perform better while still relatively quiet given the amount of ambient noise around. So if it's noisy, the fan can ramp up the speed to match that. Now, there are still a lot of features this gaming laptop has that I cannot possibly tackle on a single video, but I hope you get all the bare essential information you'll ever need. Moving on, let's finally head into our performance benchmarks so that you can have an idea of how this top-of-the-line gaming laptop from MSI performs. As usual, let me pop my benchmarking methodology on the screen so that you can have a better understanding of how I came up with my results. And I also want to disclose some of the important settings that I've chosen that greatly impact both the performance and thermals. So first, I set the power mode in Windows to best performance and turn off battery saver and sleep. Next, since I want to push this laptop to its peak, I chose to use the extreme performance mode, crank up the graphics core clock and VRAM clock offsets to 200 MHz, and enable the cooler boost option. I also made sure that the discrete graphics card option is enabled to take full advantage of the NVIDIA Geforce RTX 3080 Ti. This should allow this gaming laptop to perform at its highest, but in return, will get super loud like a jet engine. With that being said, let's head into the results of our benchmarks. Now, since I want to tackle more about the real-world applications and I don't want to waste too much of your time, I'll just show you a quick look at the synthetic benchmarks like Cinebench, 3D Mark, and PC Mark that you can possibly compare with your system if you're interested. I also did a couple of benchmarks for the 2TB Samsung Gen 4 NVMe, which is absolutely snappy when opening applications, transferring files, generating thumbnails, and scrubbing through the timeline when editing videos. Speaking of editing videos, the MSI Raider GE76 2022 edition was able to export our standard 4K 13.92-minute project using the Adobe Media Encoder for just under 8 minutes, which is quite fast, especially if you want to edit videos on the go. And when it comes to gaming, as expected, it wasn't a slouch either. Well, if you have the top-of-the-line NVIDIA Geforce RTX 3080 Ti and a 12th Gen Intel Core i9 processor, you shouldn't expect less than a smooth gaming experience even at 4K resolution, which our variant definitely support at 120Hz. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely enjoyed my time playing Valorant on this laptop at any resolution, even at 4K. But I tend to lower it down to 1440p for the sweet spot between performance and visual fidelity. Besides, most competitive FPS gamers still prefer lower resolution, either 1080p or 1440p. That's why I mentioned earlier that if I have to choose again, I'd rather get the 1440p 240Hz variant of this laptop. As you can tell, the MSI Raider GE76 2022 edition is kinda overkill for Valorant at any resolution, even at 4K. So even if you choose the 1080p 360Hz variant, this laptop can definitely handle that high refresh rate display. The same story can be said in CSGO, with up to 557 FPS in Full HD resolution, and even at 4K, we're getting around 302 FPS. Pretty much most competitive FPS esports games are playable at 4K resolution, including Rainbow Six Siege, which is not a surprise since these games are quite easy to drive, and given the hardware under the hood on this laptop, I don't think you'll have to worry about competitive gaming here, except maybe for ergonomics given the form factor of a laptop. Of course, not everyone likes competitive FPS games, some just like a more laid-back adventure or strategy games, enjoying some visual fidelity. And while Cyberpunk 2077 isn't necessarily the most laid-back RPG game, it is definitely one of the most gorgeous-looking games ever produced, with crispy details, high-def visuals, and effects, as long as your computer can handle it, of course, especially with ray tracing. As you can tell, the MSI Raider GE76 can fairly keep up with it with ray tracing Ultra and DLSS. Granted, the FPS is below 100 in any resolution, but with the right tweak on the settings, you can definitely enjoy 4K gaming with ray tracing enabled in Cyberpunk 2077. Overall, it's safe to say that gaming with the MSI Raider GE76 should not be a problem at all. Again, that should be expected given the top-of-the-line specifications. Alright, so moving on to the thermal performance, while our 12th Gen Intel Core i9 12900HK spike a bit hot, for the most part, it is relatively cool, averaging around 37 to 53 degrees while maintaining the expected benchmarks results. The same thing when it comes to gaming for our CPU, it was able to average around 57 to 67 degrees while maintaining competitive frame rates at all resolution. The NVIDIA Geforce RTX 3080 Ti is also relatively cool throughout all our testings, averaging only around 48.2 to 64.7 degrees. And like I said earlier, the MSI Raider GE76 2022 edition's processor and graphics card are fully unlocked when it comes to power delivery, allowing its full potential to be unleashed. And using a dedicated watt meter in between the 330 watts power brick and the power outlet, we're drawing around 234 to 254 watts depending on the load. And lastly, in terms of battery life, with the 4-cell 99.9 watt-hour battery, we're getting about an hour when gaming and extreme performance mode is enabled, just short of 3 hours for productivity applications, 2.5 hours for video playback, and around 3.5 hours when idle but the display is turned on. So around 1 to 3 hours give or take depending on the use case scenario. Now to wrap this up, let me give you a breakdown of all the things that I like and didn't like about the MSI Raider GE76 2022 edition. So I like the fact that you can take full advantage of the hardware inside, especially the CPU and GPU, and that you have a very nifty MSI center that includes some smart auto features for those who don't like to tinker much about the technical stuff. I also like the fairly large 7.3-inch 120Hz IPS level display with decent color reproduction. I also appreciate the overall design and construction of this laptop, which has a good balance between gamery aesthetic and minimalism that you can even bring this to professional meetings and stuff. The RGB lining in front is also a nice accent, which complements well with the RGB of the keyboard, albeit quite dim. And lastly, I also appreciate that we pretty much have all the input and output ports that every gamer and content creator needs, including a full-sized SD card reader. On the other hand, I don't like that we don't have a dedicated power button with a fingerprint reader. I don't like that the Full HD webcam doesn't support Windows Hello, and while the thermals are pretty decent and still allows the laptop to perform well at everything, it could have been better to be honest, especially during prolonged load. Other than that, I strongly feel that the MSI Raider GE76 2022 edition is one to beat at this point of the year when it comes to the top-of-the-line gaming laptops. I think this is good for those who need a powerful desktop replacement computer for on-the-go gaming and productivity like seafarers, work-from-home professionals, overseas workers, and the like. And there you have it guys, thank you for watching. Huge thanks to MSI for letting us experience their top-of-the-line gaming laptop. You can get this using the link below. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you like this, and see you next time. Have a great day guys, you're awesome.